Welcome to Power Fridays Live, the channel that aims to make a difference in the world through transformation, spiritual growth, and for entrepreneurs. Our vision is to empower individuals to live their lives with purpose and to make a positive impact on the world. We believe that power and purpose are the driving forces behind success and fulfillment in both personal and professional life. Through our broadcast, we discuss business strategies and techniques that can help entrepreneurs achieve their goals and take their business to the next level. We believe that through sharing knowledge and experience, we can empower each other to succeed and make a difference in the world. Now here's our host, Janelle Pulley.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm so excited to have with us tonight for the June Music Month and renowned percussionist. So I'm going to get to that in just a second to introduce Stix Bones. And I want to say thank you so much, Denim, for being with us tonight. And also Yolanda, thank you for being my co-host. How are you doing this evening?
Good. Excited.
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
And Stix Bones, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, in a world where the echoes of freedom's call are both a rallying cry and a whisper in the shadow, Paraphrase Live is proud to present a groundbreaking session that promises to shake the foundations of our understanding in celebration of freedom. We invite you to join us for this extraordinary event. So, this is a clarion call to action, an invitation to dialogue, and a celebration of the unbreakable spirit of human resilience and creativity. June is Black Music Month, and with the real rhythms of resistance, unveiling the price of freedom with Stix Bones and the Bone Squad, it is set to ignite a global movement, bridging the gap between generations, cultures, and communities. This isn't merely about music. This is about laying down the beats of change and challenging every listener to confront the realities of freedom, its costs, and its unparalleled value in our lives. Stix Bones, the virtuoso drummer, whose fingers pulse with the heartbeat of jazz and hip hop, along with the Bone Squad, is stepping into the world stage not just as musicians, but as harbingers of a movement that seeks to stir the soul of the world and kindle a fire of collective consciousness about the price of freedom. Teaming up with Abiodun
Yes.
of The Last Poet, they're launching a single that's poised to become the anthem of our time, a manifesto that calls every one of us to question, to connect, and to rise. In an era where the lines between the past and the future blur, and where the quest for freedom is as urgent as ever, Stix Bones and the Bone Squad reach across the divide, offering their music as a bridge. This interview is an invitation to all students and educators, artists and activists, leaders and followers. Join us now with the dialogue that will transcend the superficial to engage in a conversation that cuts to the core of what it means to be free. As we stand on the precipice of change, Power Fridays Live is not just asking you to listen, but to hear, not just to observe, but to act. This session is a call to all HBCUs, influencers, Black fraternities and sororities, musical artists, sports professionals, actors, activists, and leaders to unite under the banner of the price of freedom. Prepare tonight to be moved, challenged, and inspired. This is your summons to be part of a historic movement, a juncture where music meets mission, where rhythm intertwines with revelation, and where each of us is called to reckon with the price of freedom. Let us step into this journey that promises to redefine the landscape of music, culture, and activism. The moment is now. The conversation is here on Power Fridays Live. And the question remains, are you ready to answer the call? Welcome to Power Fridays Live, everyone. Thank you, Stix Bones, for being here. I'm so excited to have this opportunity, which is, once in a lifetime. I'm so glad that we met, and I would love for you to tell everyone a little bit about yourself to get us started.
So my name is Stix Bones. I'm a drummer based out of Brooklyn, USA, aka New York City, and I've been playing for several years now. Thank God for the gift and talent that He's given me to launch my career. Um, I've worked with some artists that are in the R&B field as well as in the hip hop field. And I started my own career as an artist in the jazz slash instrumental genre. So I am a proud husband, proud father, and I am a musician, to its core. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, just a brother who loves to indulge in having people have a good time. What I'm saying, through the love of music.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And we have another music lover with us in the house tonight, Dino Dunham. Thank you so much for being here. We're from the CEO of Beautiful Men and Women.
Uh,
Would you kindly introduce yourself, sir, as we kick this evening off? And you can start off with the first question that you have for Mr. Stix Bones.
I think you did a wonderful introduction. But for those who don't know, my name is Dino Dunham. I am the president of Beautiful Men and Women. And I am honored to be here this evening as a music lover, enthusiast, and way back when I was little percussionist. It is an honor to sit before you all this evening, but especially you, Stick Bone, because I have such a love for music, such a love for drums, percussion. That piece that you've brought, or actually you kind of bring me from the past to the present and then into the future. So I'm looking forward to an amazing conversation, hearing so much about you and what you do. So thank you again for having me. I appreciate it.
Salute.
Right. And shall I start?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna be a good host and say, just share with us how you got started. Like, what was the first time that you knew when you wanted to play, when it was in you, and then that first experience of bringing it out.
I got started with my mom taking me to church, seeing church musicians, and then I was heavily influenced with my older brother. He had a band back in the day. He come out of Queens, and him and his friends would get together like religiously, and they would have these sessions at the house. And I was sitting there, as a little kid, like, wow, this is just rich because, at the time there was a TV show called Soul Train, and he would, put Soul Train on, but whatever bands he saw, him and his friends went and rehearsed some of those songs as well as wrote some of their songs. So I got to see Soul Train in live, like, I was in the stadium by myself. So shout out to my brothers and all his friends who really put me hands on. And then the one who got me, so I had three. Another influence was I got to sit amongst a DJ coming up, and with hanging out with him, I got to see what was recorded and how the club or the crowd or the barbecue would react to that. So just hours of just observing the church musicians, my brothers and his friends, and my DJ friends. It was just soaking it in as a sponge. It was something where I was like, okay, I think this is. I didn't want to do music right away. I wanted to be a Greyhound bus driver, actually. And then after that, I wanted to be, because my dad was a city bus driver, so I wanted to be a bus driver. I just didn't want to stay in New York City. And then I was like, I had this bug to travel, so But then that music bug hit me when it was time for me to go to college, And that right there was like the start of Stix Bones, to be honest. You know, that's where it all stemmed from. And I took everything I learned coming up, watching the church musicians, the DJs, and my brother and his friends, and then I applied that to when I went to go to school.
So then you learned to play by ear.
Yes, yes, I had learned to play by ear. And I learned that you can learn to play the song, but you had to learn the song to play it right. You know what I'm saying? So I would play the same song over and over and over again until I got it right.
What song was it?
Let's see. So one of the songs I played over and over again was Heat Waves, Always and Forever.
Okay.
Play that song over and over again because at the end the drummer does this. He does it. I was like, I learned how to do that. So yeah, that Always and Forever song, I wanted that one. Of course, a Luther Vandross song, and everything he did, and you know that some Stevie Wonder songs. But my brother and them, like I said, they were songwriters, so they had their sense of R&B style, and just watching them. But I was applying it to when I had the chance to sit at the drums, and I was the kid that had to sneak on the drums when they weren't there. So because if you were there, they'd beat me down, like, get off my drums, get up, you know, you ain't getting it, you know. And then mom hit me, you know, get off my drums, you know. So yeah, that was the influence.
So at what point did they realize that you had something special? And when did you realize?
There was a place in New York City called, so I was in college at this time, and I was learning, you know, I was playing, I was learning, and I really wanted it. So there was a place in New York City, a club called Honeysuckle West, that allowed open mics. So my brother, when I went to college, my brother saw how serious I was. He gave me the drum set to go to college because you needed the instrument. And then, so somebody told me about this open mic, but the open mic, I never knew what an open mic was. I just thought, you know, you could just take anything. So I brought the drums with me to the open mic, and the host was like, "Are you going to sing and play?" Because everybody was singing. I was like, "Nah, man, I just came to play drums." He's like, "Wait a minute, you're going to just play drums by yourself on stage?" I said, "Exactly. I'm going to play drums by myself on stage." And it was like, good luck. And he put on this football helmet from the tomatoes that was supposed to be thrown. But I did 2.5 minutes. And by 45 seconds, I had the whole room rooting for me. By the end of my 2 minutes, I had the whole room standing, cheering me on. And that's when my brothers knew this was something I wanted to do, because I did it without anybody, by myself.
So you gave that saying, "Give the drummer some real meaning."
Absolutely.
So literally, and then of course when I was there, I get these drums up off the stage. I got to call the next act. So you know, you had that quick second of fame, and it was like, get these drums off the stage. You know, so I had to call my brother. Like, "Can you help me get the drums off the stage?"
I love it.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, and that kind of launched me, because I was approached by a lady by the name of Gail Hall, and she said, "I'm going to introduce you to Cuba Gooding. I'm going to introduce you to Teddy B, who was one of the top mic singers at the time. Teddy B and Cuba Gooding, son Thomas Gooding." She introduced me to both of them, and they took me under their wing right at that moment.
Wow.
Dino, I remember Honeysuckles, and I'm familiar with Teddy B. That brother could sing.
Really?
Yes.
And I don't remember Honeysuckles, and I don't remember Teddy B.
Yes.
Yeah, no, they were. Teddy B was the guy that, you know, he was the guy. He was New York City. If you went to any open mic, he was the king of that at that time. And of course I didn't know him. I was new, fresh on the scene.
Right.
But he had the ends with so many, working with comedians and singers alike. He was a dude. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So this was the genesis of a movement that got you started with the open mic sticks.
Yeah.
Could you walk us through the moment that of inspiration that birthed the Price of Freedom, your single that you're about to drop, and
You
what
know,
was it about the current social and cultural landscape that compelled you and the Bone Squad to not just create this single but to ignite a global conversation?
so all of this is relative to the price of freedom because it was when I got to college, I was free. I was free from my parents' rules. You know what I'm saying? I could eat when I want to eat. I could go to class or I don't have to go to class. I mean, you have to go to class, you're paying for it. But nobody would knock on the door and say, go to class. And that's when the price of freedom message was born, because at what price am I free? Seen a lot of the people, a lot of the students that came in with me, some of them didn't graduate. You know what I'm saying? Because that freedom that they had when they weren't amongst their parents' rules anymore, they just started wilding out. The majority of us did complete it, but the price was, yo, you're responsible for everything yourself. And that's when I was born. And at that same time is when I was still making my name around New York City as a drummer, where I came across the manager of Poets. And he was like, yo, he was the manager of Rozelle from the Roots at the time. Rozelle was getting busy with the Roots and he needed somebody to hold it down with the Poets, because Rozelle, if y'all don't know, he was the beatbox voice in the Roots. If you look at the early Roots days, he was the human beatbox of that group. So when he wasn't with the Roots, there was a group of poets that he would do the beatbox for. And the question was, well, when Rozelle is not here, who's good enough to play hip hop beats with all these poets? So that right there, I learned freedom by their spoken word messages, because they were in spoken word, they were going in. And at that time is when I actually met Abiodun, because the poets of my class will go to him because he was the forefather of all of this. You know what I'm saying? And it was the first time everything really came about. So that was really where the price of freedom was ignited, because I was free from, my mom's was like, when you turn 18, I'm gonna take the chains off, but I trust that everything I trained you to do, that you're gonna do.
Mm.
And it worked.
If I may ask, when as the poets spoke, because it's spoken word, was the music or the beats that you were playing, was it did they request it? Were you able to just be free and just freestyle with what you felt and what you heard in that moment, or what was that like?
That's the beauty of it, is the improv.
Mm.
So I was versatile because of, one, the sponge that I got from my brother, the DJs, and the church musicians. So I already knew 3 genres of music. When I got to school is when I learned jazz. So jazz allows you to be more solos and improvisational skills. And I was in jazz performance. So I was accustomed to doing things on my own. So depending on how they flow was determined if I use brushes and just, and you got this, or if they wanted to spit over something, that they'd be like, yo, Stix, drop a beat. So they'll instruct, yo, Stix, give me something smooth, yo, Stix, give me something fast, just,
Nice.
And then I had to come up with what that was.
Right.
And make it work for each of them.
That's hot. That's hot. So Abiodun, tell us a little bit about that first meeting, and at what point did you guys realize you would do a collaboration?
So the first time I met him, it was in a cipher of poets, because he was the one that would let them exercise their poems in like this cipher, right? And I wasn't a poet, so I didn't have nothing to say. I was just among them, and I knew who he was. The poet I was with who was Jessica Care who was the first poet to win Showtime at the Apollo on national TV 5 consecutive times. She was the one that was in the cipher. She got asked to be on a compilation album, which did cards for during like certain times, occasions, right? And then there was this album for Kwanzaa. She was asked to be on the album for Kwanzaa, and of course, I'm the drummer for her, so I'm playing with her. And Abiodun's son Pharaoh had a group, and that's how I kind of connected. I connected with his kids first, before him. But we all knew who he was. You know what I'm saying? And he was gentle. He would speak to everybody. But I never collaborated. I never thought to collaborate because he was the older. He was the OG. So, but with his kids who was on the scene with us, it was like, let's get together, go into the studio, vibe out, cipher, things like that. So I really worked with the poets and his kids first. And then it wasn't until I connected with, now this was in the 90s, right? Fast forward, I get connected through our bass player, Al Brisbane, his cousin, Bob Beeman. And he's like, hey, man, Bob wants to do something in music. Would you mind having a conversation with him? Had the conversation with Bob. Bob goes, yo, man, so you're in Queens, right? I said, yeah, I'm in Queens. He said, I had a friend in Queens. And this is a bad imitation of Bob, but I'm just doing it anyway.
Go for it.
Hey, man, I got a friend I came up with when I lived in Jamaica, man. We grew up in 40 projects. And there was a brother named Abiodun. I was like, the poet Abiodun? He was like, yeah, man, you heard of him? I was like, heard of him? I worked with his kids. He said, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. So he called him. And that's when me and Abiodun reconnected, as me reconnecting definitely with him. And during the conversation, Bob was like, yo, we doing this thing, man. Would you like to work with us? And he did not hesitate. And that was how that was. So I told him, I said, yo, I've been sitting on something for a couple of decades, waiting for the right person to do with this. And when I gave him the concept, you ever seen a jet take off?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So it's like the circle on the drum. It came full circle.
Came full circle. Nice. It's like the price of freedom to me is like that bottle of wine I got to sit,
right,
get good over so many years. You know what I'm saying? Because now it's magical.
Wow. I'm blown away.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to know where it all began. And of course, we know that you're a young man, and, bridging the generations through music is very important. And, music has always been a bridge between generations, but your mission takes it a step further. How do you envision the price of freedom, like facilitating deeper connections between the older and younger generations, since you are working with Abiodun? Before Can you share a little bit about that?
Explain your question one more time. Just
Okay. So, basically, like, how do you envision the price of freedom, like making deeper connections between the older and younger generations?
it's a good question. When I create stuff, I've learned to have a focal point on a certain message, but then the world is so big. You could say, I learned this from church. You can read the same scripture and get a different revelation every time. Or each person would get another revelation just off of one scripture, right? So I know what freedom was for me was to just understand that even though freedom gives you the right to do what you want to do, the thing is that we don't realize is how much it's going to cost us, whether it be time, whether it be finance, whether it be health. What is it going to cost you, right? But to somebody else, that freedom, depending on their situation, is going to develop a new revelation for them to help them get through what it is that they're going through, the message that they're going to receive it from. And I think that's the beauty of it. So, and it's spanning from decades, as you mentioned, between the age groups. Everybody is dealing with freedom in another way, in their own way, you know, depending on where you stand in the world. So the question still remains, or the statement remains, that there is a price. Just be aware of that, regardless of your situation. So how I projected it to be was just a message for people to conjure on and then apply it and say, yeah, I can afford that price, or that's a price I'm not willing to pay, or, you know what I'm saying? Thank you for waking me up to let me know that, yo, when I go this route, there's some things that may come along with it.
Wow.
I truly love it. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. That's powerful.
Okay, it is, and I love the fact that some people play music, and some people are into music. But as you're explaining, I'm really finding you inside of the music. And what does that space, that freedom, that creativity, what does it cost you? Because it's a different cost for you.
Yes.
And then two, what does that feel like and sound like? What does that, what should that say to me?
Freedom?
Yeah.
So it says I have the freedom to take my kids to the park, but it's going to cost me the time I should be at the studio. I have the freedom to write a song, but it's going to cost me time more than find it. Like, and time is the thing that as you get older, you start to be aware of, because you're like, hey, how much time do I really have? You know what I'm saying? So the main thing for me is now I'm managing my time differently, because yes, I have freedom to do certain things, but if I do one thing, I can only be at one place at one time, right? And I have the freedom to choose which one I want to indulge in. So, but then you have the consequence of the decision that you make. So if I spend time taking my kids to the park, guess what I'm doing? I'm creating memories. I'm creating engagement. I'm bonding with them, right? Which is priceless. When I'm in the studio creating or writing, or when I'm performing on stage, I am doing something that's going to enhance something beyond my reach in a few, once it's done. And that's also priceless. So for me, it's just like, understanding what I'm paying for with my time. You know what I'm saying? And that right there, for anybody who listens to the song, it could be, again, a different revelation, to the point where they get rich or have wealth in their decision as their price of freedom.
Wow. Thank you.
Stix, when you're on stage, I've never performed on stage as far as being a musician, but just the beauty of creating music that poets can spit to, people dance to, or people just sit and relax or nod to. What does that feel like, knowing that you've created a sound that moves people? When you're on stage, what does that feel like?
It feels nervous, because I don't know if they're going to like it. Let's just keep it real. Like, oh, man.
Once you know they like it, how does it feel?
I mean, of course, words can't describe how emotionally people get. The first time I performed in Paris was the learning point for me, because after I rocked the stage in Paris, they speak French, then they speak English. They understood what I was doing on stage, but when they wanted to express it in words, I did not understand what they were saying. That to me showed the power of music, right? To the point where even in the language barrier, how do you express how impactful what you did, just what you just did was for somebody else? And that feeling that you get on stage is a high. And if you're not careful, you do anything to get it. I learned that from the forefathers of the music. They needed to stay high. I've learned that you got to be able to control your addiction on that feeling. And you got to be able to, you got to be smart enough because you're free enough. You're free. You have freedom to try to reach that highness every time. It is an addiction. And if you're not careful, it will consume you. And you will jeopardize everything else that you love.
Mm. Mm. Dropping science on us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that's why y'all wanted me to come. If you want me to tell some jokes?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
You're right where we want to be. I would love to know. You said the first time you did Paris. Where was your best solo or your best performance? And like just describe the whole feeling for yourself, for the audience.
So this is why I play music and not sports, right? Because people are like, where was your best game at? Like, and you want to say when I won the championship,
Right. I'm sure you won a few championships. Same thing.
Anytime I hit the stage is a win. I played the stage sick with the flu. I played the stage with the sprained hand where I had to play the show with one hand because my other hand was sprained. There's just venues that you are happy you was able to touch the stage.
Okay.
That to me is more as opposed to which one was the best one. You know what I'm saying? And the one that I always cherish would be my first iconic stage, which was the Apollo Theater. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And even though I was at Paris first, like I toured Europe before the Apollo, where I landed at the Blue Note. I went to Switzerland, I did all that, but it was the Apollo Theater because that was something that I knew my people, my family would see. And to say, yo, I've had the pleasure of performing on that stage and the people applauded when I was done. Still is one of the greatest stories and memories I have, And then everything else after that is like, yo, if you can do the Apollo, what is Madison Square Garden? What is, what is the Paradise Theater? What is, so yeah, for me, it was the Apollo Theater.
Nice.
To be treated as a guest, yeah.
Who's your favorite drummer?
I was just getting ready
to... Great minds think alike, Dino.
Yes, ma'am. Oh my goodness.
For a long time, I don't have a favorite drummer. I wasn't influenced by drummers first.
Okay.
I was influenced by DJs who cut up James Brown's The Funky Drummer.
It's so, oh my goodness.
So I sat when the DJs were finding a break in the record and they just keep doing that 8-bar break and everybody goes crazy. That's what my influence was. So I'll name the DJs who influenced me because the drummers, I didn't really have, but I will name a church drummer by the name of Craig Williams out of Brooklyn. He's now a pastor. He was one that when I was in church looking at musicians, he was one of the ones that really influenced me. Just because of who, and he knew gospel greats like Hezekiah Walker. He knew James Hall. Like he was amongst that sounding gospel, that New York gospel sound. But his father had their own ministry, Greater St. Stephen's, and he was the one I would see more often. So I got to mention his name. But the DJs that I really got really influenced by, DJ Scratch from EPMD, DJ Maceo of De La Soul. Those were the two main brothers. Really, Scratch. I spent more time with Scratch than I did with Maceo, but they were the ones listening to Red Alert on the radio, Marley Marl. You know what I'm saying? Like the DJs was the ones that really influenced me to do what I do and bring what I bring to the stage and create musically, because they had a way of gravitating hundreds of people at one time. And it was like, when a song came on. So that to me is the ones that my favorite. I didn't realize drums until I got to college, and I was still like, who was that? Because this is sad. I didn't have vinyl records where I could flip the back and read who's playing on the records. So if I heard a trumpet song, I didn't know that was Art Blakey. And I didn't know but Art Blakey was the actual artist, and the Messengers was his band.
Right.
Not until I got to college. And that's 21 years later.
And you were able to emulate these beats on the drums, the break beats.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what happened was, hip hop was everybody was trying to learn it. And my brother had the drums. I didn't have the drums. So I was the guy in the school lunchroom banging on the tables.
Right.
I was the guy banging on the elevator walls in the projects. I was doing the beats on the hood of cars. And they was like, oh, keep that going. And they start rocking, whatever they were spitting. So I'm rocking these things. And that right there, I knew I could do something, because the person who had the other element was able to rock the crowd while I was doing what I did.
So, and I understand that era, right? And because, so coming up for me, and you ladies are too young to remember, the DJs, we had, I Can't Stop was one of the craziest beats that we heard the record, but also the DJ played, Groove to Get Down, various beats. And what I think I'm hearing is you were on the beginning of creating, actually, or becoming the cross between the musician, the DJ, and what we have now is pretty much known as the producer. It's almost like you were in that mix, in that stir, before producers actually really became, they're playing with different, instruments and machines and so forth. And you're like right before all of that began, if I'm correct.
Well, I think everything happened within a certain period, because when the time comes for you to make a decision, you have to make the decision. So let me explain. When I was playing for the Poets, all I cared about was being a drummer, right? And then you want to be the drummer for any and everybody that you can, not knowing the business of it. It was just more of the artistry, the musicianship. So I always said I didn't want to be the best drummer. I just wanted to be one of the respected drummers, right? When the Poet phase fizzled, I had to figure out something else. So that's when it was like, okay, I met musicians around town, and I started working with artists, like just the open mic artists. Right. It's weird because now I'm in a band, right? And the band is not like Kool and the Gang. It's just a musicians that got together to perform at the local clubs in New York City. And the one, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Cuba Gooding Sr. told his son and another drummer, like, this kid got something, y'all need to mentor him. So Cuba Gooding was running a club every Wednesday. It was called Indigo Blue. He was singing it every Wednesday, and his son would play bass, and there was other musicians there that was older than me. But because I was a young kid with wet behind the ears, he was like, yo, train him. Don't kick him off. Train him. So
Right.
Cuba Gooding Sr. is the one who was like, so Cuba Gooding Sr. is R&B.
Right.
So now I'm working with R&B artists. And then when that fizzled, I got in, what did I do? The hip hop crowd came back. So I was switching between R&B and hip hop. And then I started working with the hip hop guys. And that's how I got with the Lyricist Lounge movement. But then here's the key. When I was going to the Apollo, I had a manager that connected me with Ray Chu. Ray Chu, who is now the music director for Dancing with the Stars and the Thanksgiving Day Parade. He became my mentor, and he said, Stix, you got to get out of hip hop. And I was like, why, man? Like, come on, I've been beating on cars. He was like, you gotta do something to stay in the music business, because there's no real budgets to hire you for a long period of time doing what you're doing now. That conversation changed my life. And that's when I had to learn how to produce and write songs, because the only way I could stay relevant is if I was creating something that people needed. So again, the poet era, it fizzled out. I had to figure out something else that allowed me to learn how to work with bands, because remember, with the poets, I was by myself.
Right.
So I had to learn how to work with bands. Cuba Gooding stepped up and put me in the circle. That's where I met all my big brothers in music, and I got the things to work with bands. And then when I was ready, I got guys working with me to play the hip hop stuff. But then in the hip hop, it was like, listen, if you really want to do this, you got to do something else. And that's when I had to learn how to teach myself how to write and produce.
Awesome. That is great. That is so amazing. And your creativity and the artistic process that you shared with us is really great. And of course, working with the great Cuba Gooden Sr., the main ingredient, you had the main ingredient
I
right there,
know.
teaching you everything you needed to know. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And as we are queuing the song up to be played, just a snippet, just a little bit of it. Can you share some insights into the artistic process behind The Price of Freedom?
So The Price of Freedom, I recorded the music back in 2018. That's when I was working with the B.O.N.E squad, and I was creating an album. I was just recording everything I wrote. So the music of Price of Freedom was recorded, and I tried to put horn players as the lead, and and I just it didn't sit right with me, because I knew it had to be impactful, just the way the music was structured. So it sat on my computer, and then every now and again I bring it up like, yo, man, I got this track, maybe you can rap on it. So I had a rapper come on, and he's spitting. After I did the session, I was like, it's not sitting with me, and then when I got that call with Bob Beeman and we got Abiodun on the phone, I said, this track is Price of Freedom. And he said, well, what do you mean by freedom? And I was like, the freedom that you can do what you desire, but it is going to cost you something. And what is that cost? That cost is up to you. How much you're going to pay is up to you, or how you're going to pay it is up to you. Just know that there is a cost within your freedom. And that's when the plane took off. He called me back in like 3 days, like, hey, man, I got your poem. I love the concept. I think this is a message that needs to be spoken about. And I gave him the hook that I wrote, which is the hook of the song. Them words, man, it was like Jesus himself was just speaking. So I hope the message that is given freedom is the way he starts off with his power of freedom is, magical. So yeah, this is the price of freedom, y'all. Like, check it out and see if you get the message.
Nice. Sounds like a movement.
Sounds like a movement.
All right, let's hit it.
Price of freedom can never be bought. Life experience is how it's taught. Price of freedom can never be bought. Life experience is how it's taught. Freedom is too expensive for anyone to buy, and yet there are many who always try.
Yeah. That's just the teaser,
Yes.
y'all.
Yes. You heard it here first on Power Fridays Live. That is amazing. And so knowing that Yolanda shared that, hey, this is a movement, how has the price of freedom, and the impactful reaction that you're looking to get from our audience and a wider community, how's it going to influence your perspective on the movement's potential impact? Because, freedom is an expression in many different ways, but how do you really want that to go throughout
To be
the
honest,
world?
I wanted to be as impactful as a Martin Luther King speech. I want to be something that people, really gravitate to. So on the single, I have 3 versions. I have the original album version, I have a hip hop version, and then I have a soulful house version on the single. And that way, the DJs, depending on what your taste is, will be able to pick and choose on how they want to distribute it within their playlist. And that will reach people of so many different genres. And then I have another producer that's looking for the record, because he does like this dubstep, type of electronic music. And he was like, man, I need to be able to do a remix for you. So, and his market is, international. So I think it's more about putting it on the plate in a tasteful way for people to absorb it in the music genre that they like. Whether you're a hip hop head, you need to hear this message. If you're just an old school Shaft head, you need to hear this message, and let it resonate and let it become a part of you, so that every time we're in independence season, starting with Juneteenth, Independence Day, liberation, you have this message that lets you know, and then you see the price that we have. We all have the freedom to vote, right? At what price?
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tino. You got it. Just real quick, where did the name Stix come from? Stix Bone. I'm just curious. Tell the people.
Okay, I wish I could tell the story that there was this angelic thing that came down. "Ah, you will be called Stix," right? That's not what happened. I was at a family gathering, and we eating, how we do at our family gatherings. And one of my older cousins, I was wearing shorts. It was around this time of the year. I was wearing shorts, and my cousin was looking at my legs. She's like, your legs look like some chicken sticks. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, man, your legs are thin like chicken sticks. So everybody like, ha, ha, ha. But Stix resonated with me. So I dropped the chicken and just kept Stix.
I love it.
But it was amongst the poets in the sessions with Abiodun, where they was like, you just can't be called Stix, because anybody can call themselves Stix. Just like, if you know your music history, there's a group called the Crusaders where the drummer's name was Stix Hooper. So they was like, you need a first and last name, because a lot of the poets had changed their names over to African names. It was like, you need a first and last name to identify you, so that regardless if people call Stix, because you got the last name, that's going to give you your identity. And I was like, wow. So I came up with the acronym of Bones, because Bones is Stix Bones is I have 5 of my friends where we all were influenced to be great in entrepreneurship. They were my brothers. We were outstanding at what we did. Our character was noble, and on top of being brothers outstanding, noble, we wanted to be excellent. So that was Bone, and then S became the squad. So I just took that and made it my last name, Stix Bones.
Wow. Nice.
More creativity. More creativity.
Y'all sure you don't want me to tell some jokes? Can I tell some?
No, that was beautiful.
Oh, we're just in amazement. We're just in awe. I'm loving it.
Absolutely. I will say this. Today, we took a brief ride down memory lane, and found a video from the Barcades. And I remember the Barcades, but I remember the White House they had. And I didn't know the name of the song or whatever, but it was the Son of Shaft. But then they went into Stealing. And the crowd, the way the audience was a football arena field. The whole place was packed, and as they played, people they were dancing, contained, but then they just came down on the field, and they just danced, they just expressed themselves, and when it was over, they went back to their seats. And how that is speaking to me today in this moment, here with you, is you're unveiling this song, Price of Freedom, if I'm correct. Yes, The Price of Freedom. And it's almost like they did part 1, and I'm just in my mind. They did part 1, and now you have taken the mantle to do part 2. Whatever that's going to look like. I'm not in charge of it. To a degree, you're not in charge, but you are responsible. But I wish you nothing but the best in that, in you reaching your goal, as you said once, that I was the product of what Marvin Gaye saw through the band that he worked with. And definitely, I'm honored, I'm privileged to know you, to be able to host my friends and say, hey, I know Stix Bone and the squad. And, yeah.
So who is the squad? Before you go, tell us who the squad is. Who's your squad?
So the squad is my brothers that I share on stage. We have Maestro, who is our keyboard player. We have our big brother, Big Al Brisbane, holding down the bass. We have Sean Taylor, who is our trumpet player, and kind of like hip hopness on stage. That is the core of the crew. Now, additionally, because we are a squad, there's more than just the 4 of us. We're happy to announce the Bob Beeman, who is now with us on the ride as being one of the Bone Squad members. We have, and if you don't know about Bob Beeman, do your history, man. It's Black History Month. Get up on history. We have Melvin Smith, who is our saxophone player, who's playing on all the albums. We have Steve Brown on guitar, who's playing guitar on all the albums. And then there's some Bone Squad alum musicians I've had the pleasure of working with. One is by the name of Richard DeBrew Jr. He's on some of the earlier works. We have Courtney McCain, and Richard DeBrew plays piano, bass, and saxophone. We have Courtney McCain, who is a keyboard player. And that's pretty much the core of the crew. The Bone Squad. We're men that wants to do or continue the work of the forefathers before us, and that is to do one thing: give you good music. Good music. It's not about being famous. It's not about lounging. Or it's about good music. There's people are asking for good music. I love technology. I think it is great, but it has handicapped us because now people who don't do music uses technology to implement those who do, and the results are in the music that you hear of. And as long as you have a dollar to put your music where you need it to go, people are going to use it and say, "Oh wow, this must be the music of today," and that's not true. There is good music out there. There's a graduating class out of Juilliard every year, but for some reason you don't hear them on the radio or on your Spotify playlist. You know what I'm saying? So we're here to do what the same Marvin Gaye, Earth, Wind and Fire, Kool and the Gang, Stevie Wonder. We're giving y'all good music too. Bob James, Herbie Hancock, Grover Washington Jr. These guys that brought you good music, the Bone Squad is bringing you good music.
All right. So besides, Janelle, go ahead, 'cause I'm excited.
Yes, and so is Amaris excited. She's like, I'm gonna be her Mariah Carey vocals on your next album because she's over here just screaming and yodeling and all of that. So I've been on mute most of the time. But you guys, work with so many great artists and musicians, and you named so many of the historic musicians who influenced you and your sound. Can you share some of the who's who that you've worked with?
Like in the studio or on stage? Because on stage, sometimes the artist is one of those things where you happen to be at the right place at the right time. You know what I'm saying? Like with me as music director for the Lyricist Lounge shows, we were able to work with Busta Rhymes, Q-Tip, Common, De La Soul, Mos Def, Talib Kweli, and the list goes on amongst rappers. D.B. Elliott's Christ, Dougie Fresh. We were able to work with all these people because of the show, the job that we had to work with them. And that was really the birthing point of me coming out as an artist. Then when we got to be the house band for the Paradise Theater, we were the opening band for Cedric the Entertainer, New Edition, Kelly Price, SWV, Next, these people as they were passing through. When it goes into the studio, we worked with DJ Macy of De La Soul. We worked with DJ Scratch. We worked with, I worked with Drez from Black Sheep, and if you don't know these people, Google them. They're all there, some of them, this is a mixture of hip hop and things of that nature. We had the pleasure of working with Ashford and Simpson, at their club here in New York City. So the work capacity varied. If it was on stage, there was more of that than it was in the studio. Your talent opened up the doors. It's your attitude that meet them, but it's your talent that meet them, but it's your attitude that keep them. And people kept wanting to work with us because we just operated in a professional manner.
I love it, especially the hip hop flair. I have a 10-year-old and she talks about Cardi B, so I had to introduce her to Shy Rock from the Funky 4+1 More. Yes. I had to take it back for her.
Yes.
But besides listening to the incredible music and listening to the song "The Price of Freedom," what else can viewers do or listeners do to support this movement? Because this crew that you're on with, Dino, Janelle, and myself, we know this is going to be a movement. So what would you want your listeners to do, and how can they become a part of the movement?
I would love for y'all to first follow us on social media. You can subscribe to us because we're consistently putting out content of where we're going to be, what we're doing, what we're releasing. So we have a Facebook page, Bone Squad, B.O.N.E. Squad Facebook page. Please follow us on that. I have an Instagram page, Stix Bones, if that's your thing. And we do have an email list where you can join our email list by going to www.boneentertainment.com. Contacts. It's on the contacts page. You could just sign our email list and then you'll get the e-blast of what we're doing. And it's important because the public is the last to hear what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? People knew Price of Freedom was coming out like 2 weeks ago. So if you're just getting it now, guess what? You're late. You should have been on the subscription. And then we, outside of Price of Freedom, the song, the Bone Squad song that you really should be paying attention to is the Promenade, because the Promenade is our song where we have our line dance. And if you come to a Bone Squad show, you do not want to be sitting in your chair while everybody else is up on their feet doing the line dance. And it's not a hard dance. We don't have you doing, flips and nothing like that. Just a little two-step and a little cha-cha. That's all. You know what I'm saying? So listen to the Promenade. There is a tutorial to learn how to do the line dance, and we want to see you do it at our next performance.
All right.
Awesome, great. So what's next for Stix Bones and the Bone Squad?
So we're preparing for our fall dates. We have some performances coming up. Our first one will be August 10th in Peekskill, New York. And then after that, we have some potential dates, and we are headlining the Queens County Festival in October. And hopefully y'all be able to make that, because that's in New York City. And we have some other some dates that are on the table. But immediately, I'm back in the studio. I'm writing a whole new project. So this right here is going to be great for us to continue to give out good music, just to follow up. But on top of that, we have some performance coming on that we, have the people come out and have a good time.
Can't wait. Well,
Awesome.
I'm blown away.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
Y'all scratching your head. Yeah, you sure you don't want me to tell some jokes?
Yeah.
No, I'm blown away.
Y'all are sitting there like, what do I
I have
do?
nothing else. I have nothing else. I'm blown away. I just can't wait for a show. We have one king. We have Dino's the king amongst us. So if Dino wants to bring it home, I'm good.
I hear one fan in the back. Yes, thanks. She's kidding. Go ahead, girl. That's your freedom. That's your right.
That's right.
To speak your voice.
Speak your voice. Beautiful.
Yes. So that's what we have going on here. And I thank you so much, Stix Bones, and allowing us to share this time with you this evening. We do appreciate you, because the greatness is there. I appreciate your time. I look forward to your performances, and call us, let us know. We can book them for cruise ships. You're available? Yes. Cruise ships, festivals, and private parties, whatever you have a need for music, then this is your man. So we look forward to Stix Bones and the Bone Squad performing all over the world. So I'm looking forward to your tours all over. Thank you so much. Be, do, and have the greatness that you desire, because the greatness is in you. Thank you for joining us tonight on Power Fridays Live, and we'll see you next